Folks, welcome again. It is Monday in the Philippines, Manila time. I want to welcome all of our guests and people who have shown a lot of interest in the Goldwater from Australia. Love the fact that some of these people have grown a brain. We're going to be talking about social justice warriors and social justice and what you think it means and what the effect is, what the real world effect is of it. But before we get into that, hopefully we've got some callers uh, later in the hour. But we want to get into a couple of stories that just hot off the press. Uh, Mr. Max, let's go ahead and hit the front page of the Goldwater. This story just got posted. Yeah, the very first story right here, the firefighters on the goldwater.com. You could bring that up in a browser in front there, that'd be awesome. I mean, we cover political events and all sorts of things, but you can expect a couple of weird articles as well. This one, wow. Okay, that's pain. Um, Here's the gist of it, folks. We've got a guy in Germany who we're not sure exactly what specific exercise that he was doing at the time, but he got his penis caught between these plates, these weights, and just that's gonna be the top story there, the one that just got posted. 2.6 kilograms. Now that's quite a bit of weight for any man to have. Again, a kilo is what 1.2 pounds. So no, I'm sorry, it's 2 point something pounds. But that's a lot of weight to have, and of course, firefighters had to come in. I'm sure those guys have some great stories, but you'll see right there. There's a photograph of just the excellent job that these German firefighters were able to do in order to dismantle. It appears that they were using a circular saw, and you can imagine this man for 3 hours having his penis caught in these weights and have to not only suffer the humiliation of everyone around him, but you've got first responders and probably a lot of people that just got radioed in just to see it. But then he has to endure 3 hours of firefighters using what appears to be a circular saw, cutting dangerously close to his manhood. So, wow, not every day that happens. The last time we had a story like this was interesting. A woman went on an online date and clogged up the toilet, and for some reason decided that she was going to. It must have been drinking, but decided that she was going to take her poo and throw it out the window. But what happened was is it went between the two panes, and then she decided ultimately to climb up through the top of the window, and of course got stuck. And I don't think these folks went out on a date again. Again, firefighters had to respond. I think that was, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in England. I think in Liverpool. Sounds about right. So some of these stories are interesting. We've got a tweet, and this one we need to bring up when you get a chance, Mr. Max. Uh, here's another. You'll notice that this always happens on a Sunday. Um, these stories, it's my contention that these stories are part of a form of psychological warfare, just to taunt, and taunting has long been a part of battle. So I think that some of these stories, and of course Donald Trump having 40 million people looking at everything, every sentence, every word that he tweets. This time it's the Trump right down in the middle there, down below. If you scroll back onto the front page, center Donald Trump down below in recent news. That one. Let's see if we can't bring that tweet up, maybe with some audio. I'm not sure. Yeah, there should be some audio on that. Can we bring that up? So this is what Donald Trump tweeted out. Maybe we need to play this a couple of times. Of course, there he is teeing off. And then there is the famous scene during the election of Hillary getting on her $1.2 billion campaign plane and taking a faceplant. Putting those two together, again, Donald Trump was given the okay, obviously, to be tweeting something this out, because the media immediately responded and said that the first thing that they put in this video on all the headlines, of course, you won't see that on the Goldwater. If we used it, it would be in quote violent unquote. But they were using violent. This is a violent video. This is a cartoon, folks. And if anyone doesn't understand that these two people are not in the same place at the same time, and there might be a little editing going on, one is daylight, one is night, one happens on a golf course, the other happens on a plane. And I think that everyone knows it's Hillary because we all saw that moment. And this was during that 3 weeks around 9/11 where we had these scares about maybe this president, this hopeful, isn't as healthy as her doctor was saying. Of course, we all remember on 9/11, she couldn't even make it through the ceremony, which is a disgrace. If your commander-in-chief cannot stand up during a ceremony to commemorate the victims of 9/11 at the site, and she needs to be rushed off and has some sort of grabbing of the finger test, which is a test that doctors typically give you for seizures. And of course, all that video that came out of her stammering and yabbing and pretty crazy. I don't know if anyone saw all of that in conclusion, but Donald Trump is really picking on something here with something so silly and obviously funny that he's basically goading people. I think he's the ultimate troll in this situation. He's wanting the media to make complete asses of themselves, and they can't help it. And that's tying into what we're going to be discussing today, folks, is social justice. We can't show things like that. We can't show any violence. We can't show anything that might portray a black or Hispanic or any, hopefully maybe it'll come full circle. But we did and we had remember the LGBTQAAGIM, whatever it is, that video. I think we ought to play that again because that's a good segue into how ridiculous social justice warriors are invading modern culture. Certainly, it's taken root in Europe, and I think one of the reasons that it happened in Europe so quickly is simply because they've taken all their guns away. And I know that it's like maybe a stretch between A to B, and I'm not saying it's A to B. I'm saying that maybe there's a couple of points in the meantime, but you take away people's guns, and then you start telling them how to think. They're going to be more responding than somebody that says, "Hey, don't come into my home. Don't." We're going to be able to think how we want to, and we do have a constitution, and one of which is free speech, folks. Free speech. So the folks that decided that they were going to defend the free speech, the First Amendment, during the Vietnam War, particularly in the late 1960s at Berkeley, and those same people that created at the same university, creating this world of oneness. It's some sort of perverted John Lennon song. Let's just look at what happened. Let's not even look at what people said. What happened at Berkeley is astonishing from a sociological standpoint, that you would have a gay speaker come to Berkeley who had a different point of view and want to speak. Riots break out, generators and buildings are burned, fireworks are thrown all over the place. And where does this happen? at the Martin Luther King Jr. Student Union Center. Of all places, these people are firebombing a building that has this man's name on it, somebody who is celebrated, a black man, a minority, not unlike that of a gay. And so what are we looking at here? I mean, this is just it's a complete perversion. What it's being labeled as is social justice. And we call them social justice warriors. And they proudly tell themselves that they're in a true battle. The question is for what? I argue that the traction of this has gained such momentum in Europe that excuses the invasion. It's the cultural invasion of Europe. It is what we have a new writer here, and he's been on the show a number of times. Philip, he correctly described this last time that he was on the show as weaponized immigration, and you're allowed to do it because you're not supposed to say anything bad about a minority. Well, what happens when that minority becomes a majority? Are you supposed to just commit suicide and let them run the show? Having Sharia law being carried out in courts that aren't recognized, obviously, in England. Absolute insanity, total travesty. What's occurring right now? So we're going to get into a lot of that, and then also talk about some of the later stories that we've picked up. Let's change gears and maybe play the. Can we grab the video from the social justice Amanda Vandenberg's video, the LGBTQ? Yeah, let's go ahead and throw that on, folks. So, we played it last week, but some of you folks may have missed it. This will give you an idea of how absolutely ridiculous everything is.
Hey everyone, for the Goldwater, I'm Amanda Vandenberg. First, we had LGBTQT, then we had LGBTTIQ, whatever, it's so long, which is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, transgendered, intersexual, queer, questioning, two-spirit. Now, we have from the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, LGGBDTTTIQQAAPP. Wow, that's really long. This means, here we go, lesbian, gay, genderqueer, bisexual, demisexual, transgender, transsexual, two-spirit, intersex, queer, questioning, asexual, allies, pansexual, polyamorous. Wow, that's really a long one. Interestingly enough, the organization, also known as the ETFO, makes no obvious citation on their website what ETFO stands for. Per their site, part of ETFO's mission is the education, stimulation, and transformation of provincial and local organizations to be responsive to the diverse needs of the membership and to be a positive influence for change at a societal level. Should I repeat that? Probably not. It's all about as clear as their acronym.
You can just look at you.
We've noticed that the community that enjoys the company of animals, specifically pregnant goats, is not represented here. When does inclusive become exclusive? And when does something, anything in general, been just plain stupid? Don't forget to like this video and hit the subscribe button for more. This is Amanda Vandenberg for the Goldwater News.
So we're really proud of that that little piece of work there. Just to point out the absurdity, and a lot of comments were some pretty interesting stuff going on there. There's so much going on right now, especially in Europe. We need to take a moment and talk about the bomb attacks. Of course, terrorism is a weekly thing now. Bombs are going off. This time somebody's throwing a bucket bomb in a train. There's multiple threats. They just arrested somebody last night. Our time, I would say that that's going to be, so I think it was around 4 a.m. So during yesterday's afternoon during U.S. hours, that you had the second suspect arrested, and he's right next to the airport, folks, right next to it. And my first inclination, of course, they go in, they find more bombs and guns. I think it was over a dozen guns. But this guy's, out of all the places, if you're a terrorist, to live, why are you going to have this apartment right next to Heathrow? Well, I can tell you why. If this guy wasn't doing it or thinking about it, I'd be terribly surprised. The encounters of approaching aircraft at Heathrow with drones during that particular, right in that middle of the flight path, is off the charts. It's happening. There was a period of time where it was happening at least once a week. In fact, there was a Libyan official that was almost killed when they actually had to abort a landing. There were questions as to whether or not there was another Libyan official that was killed just outside of LAX, or I'm sorry, Heathrow, when the plane did go down. Whether or not they're targeting each other, they're targeting us. You have a major problem with drones flying over Heathrow and other international airports. That's a fact. That's a fact. And what better way? Of course, the police are going to be looking for anyone with a remote control walking around that area. So if you're going to be coming on and flying a drone, you're probably going to get caught. But if you've got an apartment that's overlooking the area, then I think that would be the best place to set up an operations center where you could just have a drone fly off. You don't have to have it fly from your apartment. You can go out and set it to the extent of the range of the remote control and start putting that in. You also would have the added capability of being in a place where you can specifically look at if you go to flightaware.com, all of this information is publicly available. You can see every single approaching aircraft, what their coordinates are, what their rate of descent is, exactly what their elevation is. And you can match that with the controls on the drone. And they're getting closer and closer. Whether or not they put explosives in there, I mean, you would think they might. But anyway, these are the people that are being allowed to just freely live in simply because of this concept of social justice. Do we have anyone on the line? Or I heard a little beep. Or
Phil.
who do we have?
Discord. Phil.
Phil. Great. Phil is on the line. Are you with us there, Phil?
Phil.
Might want to do a mic check on our side and on the other side of the ocean. Can you hear it? No? Well, hopefully Phil is able to call in with some audio. It'd be great. We always enjoy him being on the show. Man, just a real pleasure talking to him. Always fun. So let's run through a couple of the other things that when you start taking a look at some of these, most of the stories that have to do with crime, problems with immigration, all of it will go back to social justice, including the President of the United States making a funny tweet on a Sunday. I mean, anyone that watches a video, you're just going to, it's funny. It really is. But, of course, now that's claimed to be some sort of threat of violence against the former Secretary of State, who, by the way, I'm not sure what is she up to today with her book. Some really incredible stuff that she's been talking about. Maybe I'll segue back over there and see if I can't find an article. Of course, you know, when you get paid that amount of money to sell a book, they're going to have some people that are going to be promoting and they're going to have all sorts of creative ideas for dropping things in. But the book itself has some really absurd things in it. Of course, it's a book on blame. This is we don't like to uh, advertise for her or whatnot, but yeah, the book has these really odd passages. One of which is white women can't decide for themselves who to vote for, and the inference is that they need to be told who to vote for. And while you're picking out white women, again, it's one of these race cards. She's a white woman, right? And those are the people that didn't vote for her that she wanted to vote for. Now, of course, they're not smart enough. So it's got that kind of basket of deplorables type of insult behind it, in that if you don't agree with us, you're just plain stupid, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe, you're part of the basket of deplorables. And that's exactly the core being of social justice. So we'll be going through a bunch of stories today and take a look at how they have to relate with social justice. And I don't have to even stretch too far on a lot of these. The race baiting. Now, you can do this if you're part of the group. Now, you noticed in Amanda Vandenberg's the video that we just saw, with the LGBTQ whatever, okay, one of the A's, and I think there's what, 3 A's in there? I'm not sure what they are, asexual, A something, but one of them, which was new, was allies. Okay, so if you're not part of whatever this, they're going to use up the whole alphabet pretty soon. But if you're not part of those specific people, then you can actually add yourself as part of the club by being an ally of the whole concept of social justice. So this acronym is going to get longer and longer, and we're talking about something that it's exclusive. It's how are we going to? When is it going to end? Basically, is it going to end full circle? Where we're going to have to start creating all of these secular groups. Yet the odd part about it is that they're wanting this one world globalism. So the idea in and of itself is basically getting to the point, and somebody's got to tell me that my thinking is wrong on this, but it really is getting the same kind of concept that you would have, say, with a Muslim looking at infidels. If they don't believe what in your God, you just kill them. But it's going to get to that point. You're socially killing them now. You're professionally killing them now. If you're an executive at a technology firm in the Bay Area, and you happen to be of a different ilk or persuasion than, say, all of the social justice warrior mantra, you either have to shut up or be prepared for some serious consequences, including losing your job. And that's going on all the time. We had an article last week just about that, where it's nuts. People are afraid of losing their jobs because they're not signed on to the popular belief. Doesn't that sound a little bit close to what these extremists, radical Islam folks are, yammering about? If you're not part of our God, our group, then you got to go, or we can totally shun you, or whatever might happen. Spit in your food, lose your job, whatever it might be. But that type of behavior is almost terroristic in nature. Social justice warriors punishing anyone who doesn't believe what they are talking about. Now, mind you, these are the same people that were barking up and down about free speech back in the late 60s. We've come full circle. The problem is this is extremely dangerous. It's a very dangerous way of people to be thinking and acting on their thoughts. I shouldn't say a dangerous way of thinking. That kind of goes against, that's what they're doing, in fact. But the exact the exact battle that's occurring right here is the method of battle is that you don't have to have an argument. You label whoever doesn't agree with you as being a racist, xenophobe, whatever it might be. You sit back and continue to hammer away on it. You've got a whole group of Hollywood liberals that are supporting you because they really don't care. They don't live in the same world that we do. They're not exposed to it. They can say all day long that they want 5 million Muslims coming into London or Germany or Spain, and they're never going to get hurt by any of this. They're not going to be flying on the plane that's going to blow up. Who knows? Maybe somebody will accidentally fly a drone into one of their jets. But really, the risk for them personally is very low. And there's some sort of, certainly in Hollywood, if you're not part of that group, you're not going to get a job. You're not going to work. There's so many different parts that people have been denied simply because they've bothered to speak out about their own political beliefs. James Wood, he's a perfect example. James Woods is, I mean, an incredibly intelligent guy. The guy's got an IQ of 186 or something. And just if anyone's come across his Twitter account, he is a genius, literally a genius. Okay, so I think it's refreshing to have guys like him, and he's basically settled into the fact that yeah, he wants to speak his political beliefs. He wants to just chime in as being one of the very few people in Hollywood. And what's interesting, though, if you follow him, especially if you followed him during the election, he has commented a couple of times where you would be surprised at how many people are not liberals, how many actors aren't, but they'll never say it. In fact, they might make a comment, or their press agent might ask them to make a comment that is along the lines of it, so that they don't lose their job, so that they can get better parts and be accepted by these elite producers. I think the same thing goes with the media. I don't know what it would be like working at CNN, what that environment would be like if you were just remotely a moderate Republican. Remotely. Now, keep in mind, half the population of the United States really didn't like Hillary Clinton. So why on earth? I mean, why would you do that? I mean, why, for example, Starbucks? Why would you alienate half of the American population by making unnecessary proclamations about your commitment to yada, 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 whatever it might be? You're going to ruin Christmas, so you're going to create all of these controversies about the color of your cups, and you're not going to have any sort of reference to any sort of religion. I mean, come on, it's Christmas, okay, folks? It's not Kwanzaa. If you're going to celebrate Kwanzaa, have Kwanzaa cups. I don't care. Bottom line is I think so many of these actors and companies as well, and I'm talking about both on the left and the right. I kind of bite my lip a little bit when I'm saying Chick-fil-A, for example. Those folks obviously right of center and make a point to let people know that they are. Personally, if I'm a stockholder in that company, if it's a private company, do what you want. I mean, but if it's a publicly held company as a stockholder, like let's say Starbucks, I just wouldn't, number one, I wouldn't buy the stock again if given the opportunity. Number two, I mean, you shouldn't put your emotions ahead of making money. If your broker comes to you and says, hey, it's a good time to sell Starbucks, sell it and just don't buy it again. Because I think that companies in some way, when they start alienating all of these people just for the sake of a couple of top-level executives' opinions, how does that feel to work for somebody and you're not in the in crowd? That means that you're probably not going to get a promotion. If you screw up, you're most likely going to get fired sooner than somebody else who's going out and doing a mindless kumbaya. But this is how social justice is attacking not only culture, but it's seething into businesses. We're going to go into a little bit further about social justice as far as the concept and the idea and how who its cousins are. And one of social justice's main cousins, the biggest one, I think, are the environmentalists. That these people who, first of all, march and say that they're marching for science, and yet you've got Noah and you've got all of these people. For example, the guy who founded the Weather Channel said, "Hey, folks, you're wrong." Here's a guy who knows something about the weather. Okay, 30 years. This guy he founded the Weather Channel. Okay, so you would think just by getting some sort of contact with it, um, he would know a few things. But these type of people are getting completely ignored, and not just ignored, but whenever it comes out and they have some raw data or a reputation that's certainly worthy of somebody listening to that person simply because of the stature that they have in the community and scientifically, they're immediately shunned as a denier. Okay, so these are alert words that you need to look out for, social justice warriors. You're if you're not saying anything that they agree with, especially if you're disagreeing with them in some way, you're going to be a climate denier. You're going to be someone who is it's always a negative. So the truth is established by these people. For example, the people that are controlling the industry of climate change and the religion behind it. It's not science, folks. It's religion fueled by social justice warriors saying, well, if you don't agree with us, you want to destroy the earth. And it's ridiculous because most of the people who hunt and fish, are actually out there. They're not just wandering around the streets of San Francisco looking for a nice, safe space and gluten-free food. These are people that are actually out in the environment. Uh, and I mean, to insinuate that these people want to destroy the world is utterly ridiculous. So it goes on and on and on. I mean, we'll just keep running through these stories. Everywhere that you turn where there's typically a crime. For example, we've got this guy who we wrote a couple of stories about this guy, and I'll bring this up. It's the toddler lynching. That guy, what was his name? Extrema something. 19-year-old black rapper. That now here's something that I find interesting is that obviously somebody told him to do this. It's just, and because no news is bad news, even bad news is good news. So here's this guy who decided that he's going to lynch these, what, look, the kids look between 6 and 8, but this white kid, and he thought that that would be a good idea to have a rap video where he's going to lynch a white child, a child. And of course, the video is called, or the song is called "Look at Me," appropriately titled. Now, can you possibly imagine? I mean, really, is that social justice? I mean, what would happen if a white, well, there are some white rappers around, I guess, but I mean, a white country singer decided that he was going to lynch a black girl, a 6-year-old black girl, okay? He'd probably get killed, probably get shot right then and there. So there is no justice. This isn't about justice, folks. This is about agreeing with the people who are driving a popular, hip type of political drama. And that's what it's about. This guy's name is Extension, and we need to spell that XXXTENACION. So there's a little action on the spelling there. Complete lunacy. And of course, when you start taking a look at who this person is, arrest records, mug shots all over the place. We've got 2 articles about him. I think it's important to cover a lot of this because that's not fair, okay? And most people aren't looking for fair. I'm not looking for fair, but this is so absurd that people would celebrate this type of thing. Um, in light of what they believe, it's absurd. I think that if anyone wants to go out and shock anyone they want, man, certainly go to hch.net, 8chan, and be prepared. Be prepared. You're going to see anything and everything that is going to offend you there. So we support that. We support people doing that, saying those things. It's not a question of you shouldn't because you're offended. There's a decorum of behavior I think everybody should follow, as far as being polite to one another, as far as saying offensive things or graphic, shocking things around children. I mean, whatever happened to people just being kind of polite? But when you sit down and you're a group of people, adults especially, that you're there to talk about whatever might be going on, what your opinions are, you should not in any way be dissuaded from telling people what you think. So that's what we're looking at with this shutting down of free speech that's occurring. So not only do we shut this down, the speech, but look at the repercussions that are occurring right here now. When these people were first arrested, okay, no, you know what? We're going to switch to a new story. This is even better. There's a group of young women in London who were attacked, and these guys are at large, by people throwing acid into their face, and these acid attacks are occurring on a more and more regular basis. And these are Americans in London. We've had terrorist attacks pretty much. I mean, they're getting to the point of every week. Now you've got American women being attacked by acid, and the police are desperately, desperately looking for the perpetrators of this crime, but they're just a couple of people that are dressed in dark clothing. They will give you no description of the suspects as to what their race is, which obviously I think would be kind of important if you're desperately looking for these people. How many people are going to be disfigured? Let's say that this is a spree. Let's say it's not terrorism. Let's say it's a couple of white kids that are going out and doing this. We need to know that if the police are going to be coming to us and asking us for our help in the name of public safety, if you're going to give a description of people that are disfiguring people on the streets of London, do it. Don't just say that they're 6'2". I mean, the ridiculous ones are that they're wearing red tennis shoes and a purple hat, and one is 212 pounds, but they're not going to tell you what race. And this is one of the very real costs of social justice, especially in Europe, but it's pervasive in the United States. You'll see it everywhere. If you pretty much know if the police are refusing they've got a great description on the guys, and you don't see any sort of race, which is, if you're going to be describing somebody who's killing people or throwing acid or raping, yeah, that's a very key thing to know what their skin color is, or whether or not they had an accent, or what their race is, what their nationality is. Very important if you're going to be describing something. It's one of the first things that they do when a police investigator asks you if somebody attacked you. One of the first things that they're going to do is ask you what their skin color is, or what the ethnicity of the perpetrator was. But when it gets through to coming into the public, of course not. They're not going to do it, and that's an effect of social justice warriors currently happening. And these guys are right now out free, and if they are doing this on a serial basis to terrorize, which throwing acid on people in the middle of the street, broad daylight, in a city that's got pervasive terror right now, is an act of terror in and of itself. It just shows a complete disregard for public safety. Absolute insanity. Again, stories about crime in inner city America, any stories about, for example, food stamps being denied, or people that are rioting. I mean, we've got this whole rift that's happening right now, and I just can't possibly. I'm just. I would love for somebody to just call in and say, hey, or just put some comments on some of the sections, or go into 8chan and check that out. I would really like to have an argument as to what on earth is being gained by this. And this is being indoctrinated into our children. So the idea of this common core, half of what these folks are learning is what not to say, what not to do, and who's deciding that? Who is deciding how? Don't you think it should be up to the parents to decide how to say, how to behave? I don't think that that's the job of a government employee or anyone in education for that matter, unless you're going to some sort of etiquette school. So this goes on and on. We're going to see if we can't find a couple more articles for you. Let's see if we have a. Well, we do have an interesting one here, which, of course, this immediately came out in a firefighter in Ohio who, okay, come on, dude, for real. Uh, he is quoted, and of course, it was probably somewhere on, yeah, I think it was on Facebook, some form of social media. This guy is quoted as saying, here's the quote: "If I had to choose between saving a dog or a black man, I'd choose the dog." So, okay, he's probably not the smartest thing to be saying. Um, if you're a firefighter, you're under government payroll. Um, that's not a good thing for the maybe some black folks that are living in that area. That that's yeah, okay. Here's the question: should the guy get fired for saying it? Um, it's a decent debate. Decent. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think that you'd have to take a look at his record. If again, some people have different senses of humor, so he might have been reacting to something that you don't see there. I'm not going to go headstrong and say, hey, no, absolutely not. I don't know the circumstances, but of course, you can imagine the blowback that this guy got from just making that comment. So we'll be looking at let's see. There's a ton of this stuff that is just being fueled by race, and I wanted to bring up one of these things. So, I mean, do you fire somebody like this? Uh, I would say if he was in a public realm in a private company that I was the owner of, that's just plain stupid. I would fire him for just being dumb. Uh, that's I don't know if I'd fire him for the content, but that's just he should know better, obviously. So, number one, I would say get rid of him for stupidity. That's that's my opinion on this one. So running back through, uh, we also have another one out of Texas, and this guy. This really doesn't have to do with race at all or social justice. This is just interesting. We just posted this. Just I kind of illustrates the insanity of some humans. This is in Texas. A guy, his house is on fire, and you would think that if your house is on fire and you've got these first responders coming to put out the fire, uh, you would think that you'd be welcoming these folks with open arms. Well, this guy pulls out a gun and starts shooting at the people that are trying to put his house out, the fire out at his house. And not only that, hops in his truck and gets on a high-speed chase and ends up ramming vehicles. I mean, this guy's certainly trying to kill all the first responders. That seems to be what kind of like this the sensibility of just these people do exist, but to see them exist in such a large group and being controlled in some sort of MK Ultra fashion is just pretty weird. Uh, so, what are we looking at as far as the driving force behind this? Um, who who gains what? That's, I guess, the big question here. And we'll run through a couple more articles as we're going here. I want to get through as many of these as I can before the second hour begins here, and we might be cutting it short a little bit today. We're trying to get some other guests on, but we may need to cut it short a little bit. But we'll see if we can't get a yeah. Let's get some more of this. Let's take a look at just the acid attack. There's a video on that that's pretty good. Let's see if we can't get that up on the screen. And
Give me the link.
the acid attack, this one right here. So oh, and I'm sorry. I need to apologize. I need to correct something. This was not in London. This actually took place in France. But again, France obviously certainly pervasive with the terrorists right now, and you got the same problem that's going on. So let's see if we can run that really quick. We'll be looking through a number of these articles. So we'll wait for that to get up, and then I've got a few more that we need to take a look at.
Can you give me the link?
Oh, sure, yeah, that would be easier. Sorry about that. I will just pass the link on. Here we go, folks. Yeah, let's just scroll through that, maybe look at the video on this one, and then we'll go through a couple of other stories. You can just, we'll just take a break here before the second hour starts, and we'll see what we've got. Haven't heard much from Antifa lately. Again, they're fighting against fascism. So, of course, if you're not with them, you're a fascist. Pretty lame argument, especially a bad argument to be able to do something like that. So here's a clip of the acid attack.
Well, we are continuing to follow that breaking news right now coming out of France. Acid thrown in the faces of a group of women, all Americans, just waiting for a train.
Yeah, this happened in Marseille in the south of France. We can confirm one woman has been arrested so far. Police, though, not treating this as a terror attack.
We, of course, are going to keep you updated on this one on air and on our free ABC 15 mobile app. That's
Okay, so yeah, we needed to just update that one. We were talking about that earlier. That was in France, and they're not claiming that it's terrorist, but again, they've got this description when this news first came out was nothing having to do with who these people were, if they were male or female, and it appears that maybe one of them was a female. It could be jealous. I mean, but when you've got this happening. We've got another one that was really interesting, and we'll just go through this briefly. I don't know if we've got video for it, but I'll send this over to Mr. Max. And we're going to be talking about Facebook a little bit because these people are on the forefront of deciding if you're part of their group or not. And
Hello?
if you're not.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hi.
I can hear you.
How we doing? Is this Phil?
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, we got you for a second there.
Okay, great. Finally. Sorry about that.
Hey, no sweat. You're on the air.
Browsers. I'm using Ubuntu Studio right now.
Oh, okay. So you're running off of, okay. So, yeah, we're just running
Finally
through
get the
this. You
yeah.
want you want to go off for a little bit? I'm going to take just a tiny break here. Do you want to go off a little bit on some of the stuff that you were writing for the Goldwater? Maybe, well, more of your stuff was entertainment, but let's get an update from you on some of the stories, and maybe I'll just segue. We'll segue into just an open hour after this, but maybe get your comments before the top of the hour about what you feel about social justice warriors and the idea of it maybe having something to do with the people getting killed.
Well, okay. First off, I think what always kind of tickles me about social justice warriors is how after years and years of the religious right being blamed because, as liberals and progressives will have it, you can't legislate morality. All of a sudden, the niceness Nazis come about, you know? And what is it? Jim Goad, the author of, the Answer Me zine back in the 80s and the Redneck Manifesto and some other things. Jim Goad wrote a recent book. It's called the Church Ladies, the New Church Ladies, about the SJW thing. One thing that I will say is the SJW fever that's all throughout the media and everything. The thing about it is it's created a climate where, yes, it seems like violence is being praised because they're, quote, we've been hearing this phrase on the right side of history thrown out a lot more in the past few years, since whoever Antifa, these guys are, quote, on the right side of history. It's believed that their violence is justified because they're fighting, quote, literal Nazis. But the problem is, a lot of times these guys don't know who it is they're attacking. They just make assumptions that these guys are white supremacists. Like the Patriot Prayer Group has one of their main members is a Samoan. So, they wouldn't be a white supremacist group and have a Samoan as a member, even if the Samoan was a white supremacist, most likely.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean it's ridiculous. It's just saying that you're right because the other person's wrong. Um, that doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, where's the argument?
The SJW thing. Here's the thing. It doesn't belong to the left either.
Right.
Honestly, anybody who's trying to shut down the conversation and the right can be just as bad about this. I'm sorry, I hate it, but I love the fact that liberals have adopted the term snowflakes. Have you noticed that?
Yeah,
It's
no,
using
that's
the term snowflakes now, and
no, I
it's
love
applicable sometimes.
I love the term in certain cases. I'm going to step away from the desk. You want to just keep going for a second and just fill us in on what you've been writing
Yeah.
and just tear it apart.
Okay, great. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's the issue. What SJWs represent is political correctness originally, and you don't have to. The thing is, you may not be a social justice warrior, but if you're willing to shut down the conversation, if that's your aim, is just to shut down the conversation, anything you disagree with, that's literally unhealthy. I mean, I believe in competition. I believe that that's the way of nature. That's how nature works, and that's what makes us stronger. That's why, competitive sports have always been prized by all cultures throughout history because, it's good for people to strive and struggle against themselves and others, but yeah, the whole SJW thing, if you're, you may not be an SJW, you're trying to shut down the conversation, narrow the conversation, then that's really just unhealthy and unhealthy for the discourse and, bad for the populace. What is it? Thomas Jefferson said, a knowledgeable populace was the best defense against tyranny. But yeah, so it's really necessary that we have an open discussions about these things, and just because something offends you doesn't mean it's not true, and that's an issue that doesn't belong to the left or the right. That's something that's really both sides have been guilty of.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to catch up. I had to step away from the desk there, but yeah, the it's interesting how convenient it is. What do you figure the tie-in is with this and the whole environmental argument? The whole you want to destroy the earth if you're not
Yeah,
signing
yeah.
onto this
Okay.
green thing.
Part of that, if you look on the global level, once you label someone a denier, whether it's climate or the Holocaust, once you label someone as a denier, they're obviously a dangerous, best case scenario, crackpot, worst case scenario, dangerous, ideologically and possibly otherwise. After they had one of those attacks it was the Charlie Hebdo attacks.
Oh yeah.
France invoked this, Philip K. Dickian pre-crime statute. They locked up some quote climate deniers. People who look at some of the other. There's multiple studies, and not what year was it? 2012 or so that ClimateGate came out. There are other scientists. They've just been edged out because just like what we saw with Google recently, big money will pay a researcher to say what big money wants it to say. When I was in college, let's see, Professor H. Lynn Miles, she was one of the first person to teach an orangutan sign language.
Oh right. Yeah.
And she taught me something. This disillusioned me as an 18-year-old to hear. Unfortunately, I'd taken a lot of AP classes, so I could take a 300 level course. So I'm taking this 300 level course, and I hear what an 18-year-old should never hear. Now remember, the first rule of research is don't bite the hand that feeds you. And I heard that. I heard she didn't have to say. That means if Hershey's is funding you, you're going to find out that chocolate's good for you, or you won't find yourself funding dollars ever again.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, like that's that was just one of the early moments where I found myself disillusioned with the idea of science in general. Because a lot of it's bought off. The whole climate change thing is being pushed by the same people who are profiting on it. I mean, don't tell me that Leonardo DiCaprio and Al Gore have a less of a carbon footprint than most of the people that they're wagging their fingers at.
Oh yeah.
It's like, all right,
No,
well, then stop flying around in the jet, guys. Don't talk to me.
yeah.
I commute.
I thought it was amazing that he actually flew from Cannes to New York and back in a private jet just to pick up an environmental award. Okay. This is the hypocrisy of this is just insane. I mean, I don't mind
that's
people
why-
flying around in jets, that's great.
I'm not saying we don't have issues with the way I believe that we should treat the environment well. I believe that some industrial practices are really terrible, and we shouldn't be destroying the earth, sure, but this whole climate change thing, it's a sales pitch. The climate change is a sales pitch, and what they're selling, and this is the really disgusting part about it. A lot of this stuff is bad for the environment. A lot of these green technologies, okay, like the new lights, yeah, they last a lot longer. That's great, but they're filled with mercury. I mean, like you're putting toxic compounds in this thing. And so, see, it's safer now. It's better. It's literally a sales pitch. I'm not saying there's not climate change either. I'm not a climate change denier. No, there's climate change. I'm glad they don't call it global warming anymore.
Yeah,
because they finally realized, oops, we're wrong.
well,
I mean, all this science that they had, what was it? The ice caps were going to melt. When in
Oh,
fact,
yeah.
evidently, portion of the ice caps that are greater than they were just a few years ago. So it's climate change for sure. But I'm pretty sure that if you look at history, that happens. We had these huge cycles. I don't know exactly what causes it. I'm not like a geologist or a meteorologist, but yeah, historically speaking, we have climate change, and we are definitely going through some of that. And I do believe that a portion of it, maybe even a good portion, like a quarter to a third of it, might be man-made. But for the most part, no. For instance, oh, it's the cow farts. So you're telling me that if we were completely agrarian people and vegetarian, there wouldn't be cows and they wouldn't be farting?
Mhm.
You know, like the vegetarian argument. And by the way, I advocate a plant-based diet. It's very healthy if you can keep it balanced. I feel better when I stick to a plant-based diet. But I mean, as for the propaganda that it's kind of like, speaking of science. Okay, there was a study saying that we should eat kangaroo meat to protect the environment because kangaroo meat tastes like beef. Know for
Mhm.
certain, but I would just bet it's a kangaroo beef company that paid for just like they said that canola oil will cause arteriosclerosis, and I called shenanigans immediately. No, 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 it won't. No, it won't. It can't. And then I look into it. Finally, the truth comes out. I looked into the journal. I'd never heard of this journal. I realized there's nothing more than there's not even a sentence or a snippet or an out paying, a fee or buying the journal. And so I got really suspicious. I saw that there's no other references to this journal. And so then, the news finally comes out. The study itself was funded by the Almond Oil Council and the Canola Oil Council.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's the issue with Google paid upwards of 450,000 plus per study because they don't want hey, it'd be really nice if you found out that I'm not a dangerous monopoly that operates like a mafia.
Mhm.
Well, then don't buy off influence because that is what a dangerous organization that's like the mafia does.
Mm. Yeah, it's astonishing what just they're cramming down people's throats. And the cultish. It's a cultish behavior. Uh, I just you see this.
Oh no, you said the magic word. Have you seen the American History show? The American Horror Story Cult. It's on FX, I guess.
Hmm.
I'd watch some of this series and I kind of tried to get into it, and then I realized that it was just kind of a meh horror anthology series, but very, very meh. I love Black Mirror and, I love it, a good anthology series, but I just, after a while, it just got worse and worse, more and more boring. But, they got the new series came out and they made a direct reference to 4chan, you
Oh,
know?
really? Okay.
They made a direct reference to 4chan. They had Sonny Bono's, transgender son, Chaz Bono, plays a Trump cue ominous music when I was just flipping through the channels and I was like, oh, it's that American Horror Show again. And then, I stopped there for a second and literally, it's Chaz Bono and he puts on the Trump hat and it's cue ominous music. And it's like a joke, seriously. The show also, here's what's weird though, it references coulrophobia, clown fear. And if you'll notice, remember before Trump announced he was going to run, there was all the clown sightings, and then the clown sightings came back around the time it was coming up, right around the same time as American Horror Story with the 4chan references. Oh, by the way, the 4chan guy is the head of the clown cult.
Oh, no
I
kidding.
think that might be a veiled reference to Keck, by the way. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure. I mean,
interesting.
from the time you remember when what was it, Fox News showed the white van blow up, and if you weren't an anon, you don't have sharp eyes probably, so you didn't see where it says demonstration up in the corner. You
Mhm.
just saw what the media wants you to see. Oh, these guys 4chan, they're a dangerous hacker terrorist organization and they've blown up a white van. you
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's the kind of dirty tricks they've been playing from the beginning, as far as the coverage goes.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's just
Therefore,
nobody's backpedaling either on some of this stuff. I mean, what happened to the CNN Russian narrative? I mean, that just
the nation, and Salon, dude. When the nation says, guys, let's give up the ghost
yeah,
because data can't go that fast heading to the Ukraine. It's impossible
yeah,
to be
yeah.
done on like at that speed. It had to be done, with inside the building. Just like the old horror movie trope.
Mhm.
The leak came from inside the house.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obvious, just obvious to so many people when I read it, and the guy's just like, well, we're not gonna have to worry about that because it was impossible to start with. So, I mean, you just don't, and then you come across that, just something that's blatantly clear that you don't have to have any politics involved, whether it's right or wrong. It's just a simple bandwidth issue. Uh, I don't know. I mean, what's so hard to understand about that? I just don't get it. But
From the top down, anyways. Regardless of the political slant, most stories are coming from the AP or or Reuters, or they're coming from one of like three news wires. So there's three news sources and 500,000 places, 500,000 venues around the world, magazines and zines and blogs and newspapers and the news programs are all getting their news from this one little ticker tape, you
mhm,
know, and it's I mean, like, honestly, there's something in the NDAA that was snuck into the second. I mean, I hate it. Obama, the Obama who ran for office would have been an okay guy.
mhm,
That was going to close down Guantanamo, and he was talking about, let's see, we're going to close down Guantanamo and we're going to end the wars. What he meant was, we're gonna stop torturing people in Guantanamo and start doing it in international waters. So we're not doing it on American soil. And he said he was going to get rid of the Patriot Act. Well,
mhm.
that's a half truth. Just like with Guantanamo Bay, they stopped torturing people at Guantanamo and started doing it in international waters. Well, they didn't get rid of the Patriot Act, but he added the NDAA, which is so draconian that the Patriot Act looks like the Magna Carta, And then the second NDAA has got something about countering foreign propaganda. This
Mm.
fake Russia, this fake Russia story. Okay, in Israel they have the Hezbollah, and in Russia they have troll factories, and in China, I've seen news stories where China, they do the same thing. Everybody's got armies of trolls. It's the late '90s. There was a let's see, it was released about information warfare and truth projection and civilian perception management. And it was explaining, and this was in 1999. It was already declassified, and it was explaining how basically uh, you might lose me in just a minute. I'm getting the red light on my battery here.
No sweat.
But yeah, how we don't fight wars with bullets and bombs anymore. We fight it with information. The rest takes care of itself.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, with this new countering foreign propaganda, it's not that. It's another one of those, like the Patriot Act. It's got a very benign name, but
Mhm.
what's really behind it is allowing us to make counter strikes against foreign propaganda. I believe in RT. I believe in Russia Today. I've been following them for years. I believe now. If I wanted Russian news, I'm going to go to the Ukraine.
Mhm.
If I wanted to know what's going on, I'm going to go to the guys that don't like Russia.
Right. Yeah.
But if I wanted to know what's going on in the U.S. or Europe, the purpose of Russian state news is to make the world look bad,
Right. Okay.
so that Russians realize, wow, it's really like that everywhere. Then You know, that's the whole purpose of RT. And you know, like I said, as long as you're not looking for Russian news, RT is great. You know, so yeah, and I don't buy this whole thing about RT and Sputnik are foreign propaganda. No, they might show the U.S. in an unfavorable light, and yes, that may be part of their job. But if it's true, it's not propaganda. Then it's just called investigative reporting.
Yeah, I hear you. That's, I mean, you know, what would you classify CNN? That's- I mean,
CNN has been suspect like since forever. You remember in the Gulf War when they
mhm.
faked that with the green screen?
Oh
The
yeah,
one guy's got, you know, a helmet on, the other guy's got a gas mask on. And it's like, okay, if stuff's falling from the air and or there's gas, then you guys both need both.
yeah.
We're counting on a bunch of, you know, couch potatoes going, you know, wow, that war. And CNN reported the news that got, you know, people never realize all our wars against Iraq have been fake. They wouldn't have had those weapons if, you know, the U.S. ambassador to Iraq went to them, said,
Oh, I think that might have been the end of Phil's battery. Well, let's go ahead and bring that up. He's got a good point about. I'll get a link over to you here in a sec. This came out. It came to light obviously because of what was happening, but it got a lot more viewing recently. What he was talking about, folks, and we'll put the video up, and it's important for everybody to watch this. Let me get this up here. What they're doing is that they're actually doing what is purported to be a live shot in Iraq. Okay, but this is actually taking place in a studio where you've got these reporters who are supposed to be on the ground and wearing all of these, you know, the helmets and all of this. Let's just go ahead and run this. I think that we should just watch this for a little bit, and I'll go ahead and send that over to you, Senior Max, and we'll. It's important for people to understand exactly how far this is going. It's difficult for me to see everything with these glasses on. So here we go. Let me just fire that off, and we're gonna just watch this for a second. Again, this is CNN during the first Gulf War, reporting live what they're claiming from Saudi Arabia, cleared by Saudi government in Saudi Arabia. But what you're going to see is that the wind is by large fans that they use on movie sets, and that they're actually reporting behind a blue screen. So when they talk about fake news, this is fake news. Let's watch CNN.
Now, again, as we said, we're not sure what caused this. It could possibly, and we emphasize possibly, have been a ground impact of a Scud. It could have been a ground impact of a Patriot, or it could have been the result of debris falling between the two of them. We just don't know right now, but we do know that at least 2 Scud missiles incoming were fired at Riyadh, and according to the Saudi military, they were both shot down. Charles Jaco, CNN, reporting live from Saudi Arabia.
The blue screen.
Yeah, it's a blue screen. You'll see.
Was almost exactly 2 hours ago when the sirens went off here in Saudi Arabia. Where we are in eastern Saudi Arabia,
You'll see. This
there
gets
was no
even
problem.
worse.
However, there was an intercept elsewhere near the capital city, Riyadh. We've got some videotape of that you can take a look at right now. Hi, Atlanta. We're about to have a short course in missile identification. This is a Scud. You can tell it by its distinctive label. Now, when the missile is launched, the first thing you look for is the plume sticking out behind it. Now, when you detect this, you can tell it's been launched. Thank you.
Graffiti on it? Yeah, show me graffiti.
Larry King show or bust. Look at this.
Look
Look at this. Look at this shit. Look at
Believe that.
So this is obviously in a studio,
The top
folks.
10 things about Saudi Arabia. Maybe we could shorten the list to 5.
Oh God, Geopolitics by Dan Quayle.
Je suis un journaliste américain.
Okay, this is obviously in a studio, folks.
Oh, I love this country so much.
You guys just don't have a clue.
Well, Cheryl, it was almost exactly 2 hours ago when the sirens went off here in Saudi Arabia. Where we are in eastern Saudi Arabia, there was no problem. Let me just size my mask and fit it for a second, just like I always do. Stand by.
So this is how far they're going to be going. They're
All
going to
clear,
actually
clear.
put gas masks on,
What are they saying? Are they
helmets,
saying all clear?
and pretend that they're going to be launched,
saying all clear
that
down
they're
there just now?
in some sort of danger.
All clear. All clear. Está bien was a false alarm. Got that, Atlanta? Standing down now. I'm gonna go get my hamburger and my coffee.
Good. We just got the all clear.
All clear. Every
Have
time
you
I
seen
order
this?
something, this happens. All clear. Thank you.
It's funny, isn't it?
Jesus Christ.
I'm starting to get
like a
real
gag.
bothered by all this.
A gag show.
Say again.
Gag show.
Oh, this is just like, as bad as
Look
it
at it, I
gets.
almost look stupid. Charles Jaco, CNN, reporting live from Saudi Arabia. No, wait a minute. Whoa, hold it, homeboy. I'm the talent here, you dig? Couple of explosions, what may have been,
So this is when they're actually pretending that they're under attack. And again, this is all in a studio, folks.
Of an incoming Scud missile. We're really not sure. All we know is that the air raid sirens have gone off, and we've heard the outgoing roar of at least one Patriot missile. We've heard some sort of airburst.
So they're using recordings of these missile alarms. I think we can wrap it up. I think everybody gets the point right there, Mr. Max. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and cut that one. So we brought that on just to let people know, if you haven't seen that, it's obviously interesting how bad journalism's going. At that time, though, what was funny is that CNN wasn't just so completely overtly liberal. That happened, I think, with a little bit of influence from Jane Fonda in the later years, and then of course it just snowballed from there. So this is a network that has a history of doing this, and of course this is a network. If you take a look, if you ever travel overseas, just turn on CNN in a hotel, and you'll be looking at a completely different CNN, one that doesn't have ads, and in place of all of their advertising, it's cut in with all of these social justice ads, just telling you how to treat other people and treat Mother Earth, and all of these really touchy-feely, environmental, come-together, kumbaya, social justice messages. It really is a form of programming, and it's especially disturbing that they're doing it overseas. They're targeting an overseas audience with this. So we were talking about propaganda. I mean, I don't know. By definition, perhaps not, but definite programming, a definite message behind whatever news. It's certainly selective. And the very fact that they chose one topic for about 3 months and it went nowhere, folks, nowhere. Where is the Russia-Trump connection right now? Of course, we're going to have some Senate hearings, and I really hope that they do get to the bottom of a lot of stuff going there. But I think that what you're going to find is that what the most interesting part about these are that the information that they were so keen to show in front of everyone, which would be this meeting that happened in Trump Tower, and the fact that, but the very fact that Obama gave the attorney, she wasn't allowed in the country, Obama gave the attorney a provisional visa, and for somebody to do that to a Russian, for a Russian, under those circumstances, in the current political environment that we have, considering the fact that they're now they're alleging all of these things, tampering with the elections, and this is happening, at the beginning of it. You'll find out that that thing went away quickly because I believe personally that it was a setup. And when people don't do their jobs and they're doing they're not used to arguing anymore, so they're lazy and they're not doing their jobs. They forget how to report. And when real reporters actually go in and start investigating this stuff, they'll find out the truth. And a lot of people are going to have egg on their face regarding this. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up a little bit early on this show right now. I think we've hit social justice for a little while, and we'll just wrap it up a little early this round. I want to especially thank Phil for calling in. Always great to have you. Always look forward to having you on the show, and hopefully we'll just go ahead and pass the baton at some point so that you can have some equal time and equal say and start throwing in a little bit of programming yourself there. So I think that would be a great idea. Also want to thank folks at Revolution Radio. I wasn't able to get on their show this time, but we do simulcast the story behind the story with Dr. A. True Ott. He's always got some really interesting kind of rabbit hole type of scenarios going on, but incredibly intelligent guy. And both he and we affectionately call Alex Studer, who is an associate of the Goldwater as well. He goes by the name of Redfoot. You can find out a lot of his more deeper down the rabbit hole. I like to call it the rabbit hole within the rabbit hole. And he's at labvirus.com. That's labvirus.com. So we're going to go ahead and sign off here a little bit early. Make sure and go to the Goldwater. We've got some great stories that a lot of them recently have to do with social justice. And just unlike any other network or website out there, we do not screen anything that you say. So you can say whatever the hell you want on our website. Tell us what you feel. And so wanted to also thank Diana Prince. Couldn't be here, but she says hello to everyone. And this is on behalf of the Goldwater, Major James Burdock. Thanks again to Jacob Max, our producer today. And also want to shout out to Jane for keeping us company. So thanks for watching, folks. This is Major James Burdock signing off from the Goldwater.